interesting how is there a difference between ape and human being when you pose is that apes are generally more rational even. In the sense of if you make with an ape the experiment of simply the experiment of, let's say, very primitive experiment, he told me. You propose to a male ape a beautiful, very attractive sexual partner and a B-level sexual partner. First, the ape tries to get to the more attractive partner. But after some time, when the ape sees he cannot do it, he says, okay, fuck off. He goes to the... it's very rational calculation. While with men, we are much more... we persist to the end. You never, the more it is impossible, the more you stick to it, and so on and so on. This, let's call it internalization of desire, which then produces something which, and that's how I read Freud, brings us to death drive. Death drive has nothing to do whatsoever, that's the ABC, I hope you know it, with that nirvana sheet and so on. Death drive is exactly the opposite. I claim, if you read Freud closely, death drive is Freudian name for immortality. What Freud calls death drive is something that insists, as it were, beyond life and death. Figures of death drive are like vampires, living dead, and so on and so on. And my thesis, which I develop repeatedly in my books, without this you cannot understand not only Hegel but none of the classical philosophy, is that this is what explodes in German idealism. And that's what I'm trying to do basically in all my work. Reading mutually like German idealism to psychoanalysis, not in order to reduce German idealism just to psychology, but to elevate Freud to a thinker. For example, sorry if you know this line, but it's wonderful works, I want to repeat it, it works wonderfully. The best account of that drive I found is just in a small, like some little deduction in Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, where he mentions, Immanuel Kant, two types of negation. He mentions, he distinguishes negative judgment and infinite judgment. It's very simple to understand. Kant says negative judgment negates a predicate, a infinite judgment affirms a non-predicate. You will say, what's the point? It's the same sheet. No, it's not. Why not? Let's go to Stephen King territory and you will see why not. Let us negate the predicate dead. First, as a negative judgment. If I say, you are not dead, what does this mean? You are alive, nothing special. No, we have just the space of life, death, you are not dead, you are alive. Okay, but think about it. Let us say, not you are not dead, but you are undead. This means something quite different. This doesn't mean you are simply alive. It means you are alive as dead. You are a living dead. You know, a third domain is opened of some obscene life which exists beyond life and death, and so on. And my claim, this vampiric, as it were, undead, all the vampires and so on, this space is opened by Kant. And this is the space of this absolute negativity, death drive, and so on, which was conceptualized by German idealism. And this is the excess with which culture, dialectical mediation tries to deal. And with Hegel, now you will say, but wait a minute, for Hegel, this is only a starting point. But at the end, we have this perfect reconciliation, all in peace, and so on. No. That's what I will try to prove to you more tomorrow than today. Just give you... Hegel was well aware that this excess of negativity cannot ever be culturalized. Which is why, for example, just to give you one hint, in contrast to Kant, Hegel didn't believe in eternal peace. Because he thought that You know, the way Hegel is presented, perfect modern bourgeois society, all the particular interests are harmonized in the common good, you reconcile with society and so on. Hegel thinks that, not because he was a militarist, but he thought that there always is the threat that this radical negativity, this excess will explode again and again. And again, this excess is neither life nor neither nature nor culture. So you see, now we already got the first abstract idea of how the Hegelian progress, let's put it in this way, looks. It's not simply you have a natural substrate and then progressively you develop more and more culture. No. Once you are in culture, retroactively you denaturalize nature. You know, culture doesn't only civilize natural distincts. The price we pay to move into culture is that what before was a simple natural instinct, like I want to screw 1 month a year when smells tells me this is a mating season or what, becomes an absolute, eternal, suicidal, repetitive drive, which is crucial for Freudian notion of death drive, that it's a repetitive drive. Repetitive in the sense that, as Lacan puts it very precisely, in this distinction, he uses English terms here, Lacan, between aim and goal. Goal is what you officially want, let's say, to achieve something. But for Lacan, the true satisfaction of the drive is the circular movement of the drive itself. You don't want to achieve, it's like boomerang. You don't want to hit it. You want it to come back and try again and again, and the true satisfaction is provided by this very circular movement, and so on and so on. Which is why, for Freud, who is here a good Hegelian, which is why for Freud, sexual satisfaction, it's always, when Freud talks about this foreplay, it's never simply foreplay is a goal to the final goal, big penetration, whatever, sexual act. There is always a danger that the foreplay will turn into a self-goal, how should I put it? I want to tell you here a story told to me by nice British Lacanian, very good popularizer of Lacan, but also independently of this, not an idiot, Darian Leader. In his, I think, one of the first books, it's a very simple example, I mentioned it in one of my books, he quotes the example of, very simple one, of how one of his patients, you want to blackmail me or what, told me that, with like this nasty, horrible, that told him of a strange slip of tongue that happened to him. He took a lady to a restaurant with the obvious goal of seducing her later. And while approaching and reserving a table, he made the obvious slip of tongue. Instead of saying, table for two, please, he said, a bed for two, please, to the waiter. Now, the primitive pseudo-Freudian interpretation would have been, of course, his mind was already up there, blah, blah, blah. Darian Leader proposed a totally different interpretation. That he was afraid that, how should I put it, that the foreplay would overshadow the official goal itself, as it were. He was afraid that in this hierarchical order, we go to eat it's just a pretext to go to bed later, that he will enjoy too much what should be, following the official hierarchy of seduction, just the preparatory step. So it was more a defense against enjoying too much the foreplay, the beginning. He wanted to convince you, he said, no, it's not eating, I really want to, it's really about, It's, I think, a much more intelligent explanation, which is why, to conclude the first part with lovingly racist joke about maybe if you, the two of you from ex-Yugoslavia, those wonderful jokes, some of them are